Alright, welcome to another episode, everyone. Today we're doing rear strut replacement. As you can see, I like to buy the complete unit. In other words, I don't buy the strut only without the spring. I just like the complete units because, again, you don't have to rent the compressor, the spring compressor tool. You just take out the old one, put in the new one, and that's it. So that being said, let's go ahead and let's begin. So first step, we're going to loosen up the lug nuts. This happens to be the factory lug nut wrench. Place a piece of pipe over the wrench to give you extra leverage, and just loosen up the bolts. Okay, so if we take a look at the shock, as you can see, it's just everything's disintegrating. It's not leaking, but I just recently replaced the driver's side, and in fact, the bottom coupling here exploded over a bump, so it really needs to be replaced. Most likely the original part. So right here on the bottom, we have a 17mm bolt. Get yourself a good hand tool. This happens to be a Craftsman, but get good hand tools when you do this because, especially in this case, this car is 17 years old. So you want to use good tools because this thing will really be rusted on. Now you can use a pipe. Just place a pipe over the end of the wrench here and just use that as leverage, or get yourself a good 4-pound hammer, a mini sledge, and what we're going to do is to strike the end of the wrench. Now you can soak the bolt with PB Blaster, WD-40, whatever you want to use. But I'm just going to go right at it. In fact, I'm just going to position the wrench like so. Let me move the camera down a little bit so you guys can see this. Actually, I'll move back. Alright, let's rock and roll. And it will become loose, just you have to give it a good whacking. And once you have it loose enough, get yourself a ratchet, a socket. Now one thing to note, don't be a dummy like me. If you take a look, what's happening here, the coupling back here has completely sheared off. And really what I should have done is I should have used penetrating oil, WD-40, PB Blaster. So don't make that mistake, but we can still fix it. Get yourself a vice grip. Again, this is a Craftsman. You always want to have good tools because it just makes your job a lot easier. And then of course get your wrench and turn away. And there we go. So you may have to do this if it's just a really old car and everything is rusted away. Again, use good tools. Don't use cheap tools because it's just going to make your life a lot more difficult. So as you can see, the bottom half is loose, and then we have 2 bolts on top which we need to access from the trunk. So now we're inside the trunk, and right here we have 2 bolts that we need to remove, and then the shock will just drop right out of the vehicle. And then just remove the shock from the vehicle. So now we grab our brand new strut. This happens to be a Monroe complete unit. As you can see, and I just like the complete units because you don't have to transfer the spring over. They do give you new top mounts, so the lower mount will use the same. And if we take a look, the other thing that you need to do is you have this gasket right here. Just make sure you remove the old gasket and place it on the new one. This is just a warning label not to remove this bolt because it will hurt you if you do something like that without using the right tools, but you don't need to in this case. Put the new gasket on, and that's it. We're ready to reinstall this in the vehicle. So we'll just go ahead and reinstall it or replace it through the top mount. Now these top ones don't have to be too tight. In fact, the manual only calls for 12 to 14 foot-pounds. But just make sure they're snug, and then we can go ahead and continue to the bottom one. Now for the bottom mount, what you want to do is push down with your left hand the axle here. As you can see, it's loose. And then with your right hand, just insert the lower bolt or the lower nut here, like so. It's a little hard when you do this on your own, but there we go. Now the factory calls for 72 to 87 foot-pounds for this lower nut. If you've never used a torque wrench before, just search under my videos. In fact, I'll include a link right now, and I just do a quick overview of what essentially this is all about. But what I did in my case, I dialed it to 85 foot-pounds, and once we hit the 85 foot-pounds, this wrench will click, and then we know that we're in good shape. So let's go ahead and just tighten up the bolt here. And that's it, we're in good shape.